Okay, my beauties, we are moving on to 4.4 day 1, trig functions of any angle. So we're no longer on the unit circle. So looking right here, this is no longer 1. This is r, the radius. Okay, so this circle, if we were to draw the circle in, is no longer the unit circle, so the radius is not 1. So these things are now going to have r's involved because sine is now not just y, it's y over r. Cosine x over r. Notice tangent doesn't change because opposite over adjacent is still y over x. Cosecant would then be r over y. Secant r over x. And cotangent is still x over y because it doesn't include the hypotenuse. It only includes the legs of the right triangle. All right, so example 1, we want to find the values of the 6 trig functions given the point lies on the terminal side of the angle in standard position. All right, so we really have to pay attention to what quadrant are we in. So the point -5, -6, so left 5, down 6 would be right here. So we're in quadrant 3. We have the 2 legs, we don't have the hypotenuse. So Pythagorean theorem, we get r is the square root of 61. So sine y over r, -6 over root 61, rationalize your denominator, and -6 root 61 over 61. Cosine x over r, so -5 over root 61, rationalize, and you get -5 root 61 over 61. Tangent y over x, -6 over -5 is 6/5. Then we can find the other ones, but we can use the r over y, r over x, x over y, or what I like to do is just the reciprocal. So if I take the reciprocal, I get -root 61 over 6, -root 61 over 5, and 5 over 6. All right, so B, -3, 9, so left 3, up 9. And again, we don't have our hypotenuse or the radius. So Pythagorean theorem, I get r equals the square root of 90, but 9 is a perfect square, so this becomes 3 root 10. So sine would be y over r. Well, the 9 and the 3 reduce, and then rationalize, and you get 3 root 10 over 10. Cosine x over r, the 3's reduce, and you rationalize and get -root 10 over 10. I don't know what happened to my negative sign. Sorry, -root 10 over 10. Tangent y over x reduces to -3. And then we take all the reciprocals. So take the reciprocal and we get root 10 over 3. Take the reciprocal and we get -root 10. Take the reciprocal and we get -1/3. All right, so example 2, a little trickier, is we're given one of the trig values. So you have to use that with the other information to figure out which quadrant are you in, because that makes a big difference on whether things are positive or negative. If you go to the right, the x is positive. If you go to the left, the x is negative. If you go up, the y is positive. If you go down, the y is negative. So that affects your trig functions. Okay, so on this one, we were nicely told that it's in quadrant 2. And right here, we were given cosine is -4/5. So that means the x has to be -4, and the radius has to be 5, because the radius is always positive. The x and y can be negative, but the radius is always positive. So then, using Pythagorean theorem, this is 3, and it's in quadrant 2. It's going up, so it is a +3. And now that I have my triangle, I can find all the other values. So sine, 3 over 5. Tangent, 3 over -4, so a -3/4. And then these are the reciprocals, so 5/3, -5/4, and -4/3. All right, so on B, cotangent is greater than 0, and that is supposed to be a greater than sign. So cotangent is greater than 0. So cotangent's positive. Well, that means we could be in two quadrants. We could either be in quadrant 1 or quadrant 3, because a positive divided by a positive is positive, and a negative divided by a negative is positive. So then we have to look and see what else did we get. Cosecant. Well, cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. Sine is the y value. So that tells us we have to be in quadrant 1 because the y value has to be positive. If we were in quadrant 3, the y value would be negative. So cosecant is 4, which means sine is 1 over 4. And that's what I used then to make my right triangle. The y value is 1, the radius is 4. Use Pythagorean theorem to get the other leg is the square root of 15. So then cosine is root 15 over 4. Tangent is 1 over root 15, but then if you rationalize, multiply top and bottom by root 15, you have root 15 over 15. And then the reciprocal, 4 over root 15, which is 4 root 15 over 15. And the reciprocal of 1 over root 15 is root 15. And yay, we finished day 1.